Welcome yet again to another Elog Sews tutorial. On this episode, I'll be walking you through how to make these pleated jorts. A twist on regular jorts with interesting pocket details, a unique front fly construction, and of course, the reverse box pleats. Sizes ranging from waist size 26 to 38. This will be an in-depth tutorial where I show you all of the steps. From constructing the pockets, the zipper fly, all the felt seams, and the waistband with the belt loops. I'll put all the timestamps for all the steps below, as well as a link to where you can get the pattern. If you're new, touch the buttons that make the algorithm go crazy, and without talking anymore, let's get into it. So here's what you'll need. 2 meters of your fabric. I think even 1.5 meters would be enough, but just to be safe, 2 meters, you're gonna have some left over, to do some other things. I'm using a denim here. You could use a cotton twill, any woven fabric really. And here is what I'm gonna use for the pockets. And you're gonna need half a meter, probably less, but like half a meter will do good. And then a 18 centimeter zip. I think you could also do with a 15, but this is an 18 centimeter zip. And lastly, of course, you're gonna need a button for your fly. The other thing that you're gonna need is some fusible interfacing. Just half a meter will do. And also, of course, the pattern. And on the front page, you're gonna see a few important things. This is the size of the paper that you're gonna have to print on. So depending on what printer you have or where you're gonna print, A4, A3, A0, and US letter. Once you download, you're gonna get all of those. And when you print, you're gonna print the right one, basically. Here is your page layout, which is how you're gonna arrange these pages. So 1 up to 12 pages in total. Here's a test box that you're gonna measure to check if you printed this out on scale. And pattern pieces, materials needed. As you can see, the sizes range from 26 to 38, and in general the seam allowance is half of an inch, but as you're watching the tutorial, you're gonna realize that in some places you're gonna need more seam allowance. For example, all the welt, not the welt, what are these? All these seams, you're gonna need 1 inch, and this for this part here is just gonna be a 1/4 inch seam allowance. But in general, like the side seams and all the other seams, half of an inch. You're gonna cut this out. I'm gonna show you. I've already cut it out, but I'm gonna show you the process of sticking the pages together and cutting them out. You're gonna notice that here, these 4 are connected, and these 4 can be connected separately. And then you can connect all these 4, cut out, and then connect these, and just to kind of save yourself some work and not have a big clunk of papers stuck together. Now, yeah. Anyway, get back to you once I'm done cutting the fabric, and we'll talk about the process. Okay, so after cutting out your pattern, this is what you're gonna have. I marked out the size that I wanted, which is a size 28, and I realized this is an old version of this pattern, which means the grading is off, but I'm gonna fix that, which means the pattern that you're gonna get is gonna be fixed. Anyway, this one's gonna be the back. These are where the pleats are gonna be, so you're gonna transfer these marks, and the size of the pleats are the same for all the sizes, so same placement for everything. They use here. Then this is going to be the yoke. So once you connect these pleats, the length of this is going to be the same length as this. This is the front, where your fly is going to be, pleats, where the pocket's going to come, and then the waistband. And then the other pieces are the pockets and the belt loop. So these are going to be the front pockets, the ones that are going to be here, these ones. these pockets, and you're gonna cut this one out of your like pocket fabric, which for me is this camouflage fabric. This is gonna be your pocket facing. This is going to be your coin pocket. You're gonna cut out one. The fly facing, you're gonna cut one. Fly shield, cut times one. You're gonna cut two of your back pockets, and obviously your belt loop, which you're gonna cut one out of. And I think that is all the pieces that you're gonna need to cut. And you're also gonna need to cut interfacing for this piece and also the waistband. So either cut out just one piece of interfacing for one of them, because you're gonna cut two waistband pieces, or two, depending on how thick your fabric is. I usually just go for one, but if I feel like the fabric is not even that strong, I'm gonna go two. And I'm gonna cut out the fabric and kind of show you all of those pieces, and then we're gonna get into it. So here are the pieces that you should have cut out once you're done cutting the fabric. And two back pieces, two yokes, two back pockets, two fronts, two of these pocket pieces using your contrasting fabric, one of these coin pockets, which is going to be on your left side, two of these pocket facings, as you can see, two waist pieces, one, two, with a corresponding interfacing piece. That is going to be for one of these. I'm just going to apply it to this. And what I did was I made the inside of the waistband this camel fabric. I think that's going to be a cool little detail. And then here is your zipper, your fly facing, the belt loop, plural. You're gonna cut a bunch of these, I think 5, and the fly, what is it? I think this is the fly facing, this is the fly guard, and the corresponding filing piece. The bubbles are gonna be this side, so you're gonna iron it to the wrong side. And it's important that this is what it looks like. The wrong side is up, this is the right side, right? You're gonna apply it, you're gonna put this to one side of your front pieces. Again, it's very important that this is what it looks like from the wrong side. It's facing that way. Okay, cool. So obviously first thing you want to do is apply this violin here using your iron, and also here, and then we'll talk about what you do next. So once you're done ironing the violin slash diffusible interfacing to the wrong side of this waistband, as you can see, you're gonna have these two waistband pieces, and you're gonna wanna create notches down the middle. And what you're gonna do to do that is just fold this in half and use your scissors just to notch up here and up here. Apply violin to this one as well, and once you're done with that, you're gonna start pressing some of these pieces, which are the coin pocket, which is gonna be on top of your pocket facing, then these. So what you're gonna do is fold in at 3/8 of an inch and press. But before that, you're gonna overlock along the top, overlock along the top, overlock along the top, and fold and press, fold and press, fold and press. This is gonna be your belt loops. You're gonna overlock along here and also along here. Then what you're gonna do next is fold it in half and press, and then fold towards that middle. There's gonna be a crease to guide you. Fold like this, and then press, and that's gonna be how wide your belt loop is gonna be. And if you want it to be a little bit less wide, you're just gonna fold in like this and have something more like this. Then you're just gonna top stitch. So I'm gonna do all of those steps just now and get back to you for more. And I forgot to mention that you should also overlock this edge of this piece. And what you're going to do next is top stitch at an eighth of an inch seam allowance here, and then a quarter of an inch seam allowance. So your top stitches are going to be roughly a quarter of an inch apart, but it's going to be less than a quarter of an inch because I'm using the edge of the foot to kind of measure that. You're going to see what I mean very soon, and you're going to do the same thing here, here, and here, like a double top stitch. And for this piece, you're going to do a top stitch at an eighth of an inch seam allowance here and this side as well, so both sides. All right, great. So you're done with the double top stitches here, here, and here, and you're done top stitching your belt loop. Now what you're gonna do is fold along all of these sides at half of an inch and press. So for this, and also for this, but for this one, you're only gonna fold this side and this side. You don't have to fold this part. And this one, you're just gonna put away for now. We're gonna need this in the end. So once you're done folding and pressing these at half an inch all around, you're gonna put these away. You're gonna use them for later. And this is what you're gonna focus on right now. Here we have our pocket facings, and you are going to sew this down onto this one. So somewhere along the middle, you're gonna wanna give some space this way because this is where the side seam is gonna be. So somewhere around here, I'd say maybe measure 1 3/4 of an inch. So somewhere here. And what you're gonna do is just sew this down, double top stitch, and next you're gonna overlock this edge and also overlock this edge as well. So here's what you're supposed to have at this point. And what you're gonna do now is take out your pocket pieces and then align this corner to this. Once it's nice and aligned, you're gonna just base stitch all around at a quarter of an inch seam allowance. And you're gonna do the exact same for this as well. So here's what you're gonna have right now. We're gonna put these aside and pull out the front pieces, and you're gonna have two front pieces. Pull them apart together like this, and what you're gonna do now is do those pleats. So since you have transferred those notches, what you're gonna do is fold so that your notches are aligned, and make sure that this fold is like perpendicular, like it's going straight down. So to help you with this stitch, you're just gonna draw a straight line coming down, and it has to be parallel to this edge, so the same spacing, and make a mark. I actually ended up going 4 inches, so 4 inches down you're gonna make a mark, and now I pin this over here. I'm gonna sew and then back stitch over here, both for this side and the other front piece. So once that's done, you're basically just gonna do this, and on this side you're gonna kind of distribute this equally both ways and fold like this. Make sure it's coming down, and what you're gonna do is press all the way up until kind of where your stitch is. So somewhere around here, you're gonna feel it basically, and you're just gonna press this side and do the same for this one as well. You're gonna press, and after that on the other side you're gonna do a baste stitch at a quarter of an inch seam allowance along the top. And if you do have a machine like mine that you can do a zigzag stitch on, you're gonna do a zigzag stitch here just to kind of secure this pleat so that over time it doesn't like tear and open up. Besides that, what you could do is just like using a straight stitch, just go back and forth, or just secure your back stitch a little bit more. So here's how I have my settings. I have this on my zigzag, and over here the stitch length is slightly above 1 millimeter. I think that's the thing, like slightly above 1. And what I'm going to do is just do these zigzag stitches right on top of here, so above right here, and the same for this side as well. So now you have two pieces that look like this. You have your zigzag stitch, and behind here you've pressed and top stitched, well, baste stitched along the top here at 1/4 inch seam allowance. What you're going to do now is take this piece, and you'll notice that this piece fits here when you place them right sides facing, which means for this one you're just going to extend this line. It's going to go straight so that this is straight, and you're just going to cut this along this line that you just marked. Boom. And what we're going to do now is attach the pockets. So before we attach this, we're just going to put it away and place our pocket pieces with right sides facing. So this is going to come here, and you're going to place these with right sides facing. Use pins, and you're going to sew along this edge like so at 1/4 inch seam allowance. You're going to do the same thing this side, and then sew along at 1/4 inch seam allowance.
Are you tired of complicated sewing patterns? Confusing written instructions that just boggle your brain? Do you wish you could get stylish yet simple to follow PDF sewing patterns? Well, at Papillon Society, we've got something just for you. Buy a beginner-friendly PDF sewing pattern from us and make something cool, following our simple and in-depth video instructions. And if you're a little bit more experienced than that, we've got something for you too. We got jacket patterns, tote bag patterns, cargo vests and puffer vests. We even have a few travel bag PDF patterns, which you can print out in the comfort of your own home. Prices starting from as low as $3.99 and sales coming in frequently. You really don't want to miss out. Here's some reviews from people who like the pattern. Here's some reviews from people who tried the pattern. Visit our online store and get yourself a pattern today. Happy sewing!
Disclaimer. Use Papillon sewing patterns responsibly. Side effects may include boosting confidence, closet burning down because the clothes are too fire, getting bombarded with compliments on the garments you made. Call your nearest fire department if your closet explodes. T's and C's apply. Papillon Society is not responsible for any damage caused.
And now you're going to cut towards this corner and towards this corner, and cut these off. And you're going to cut as close as you can to the stitch, but make sure that you do not cut past the stitch. And you're going to do the same with this side. Next, you're just going to pull this to the wrong side so that wrong sides are facing. And you're just going to make sure that these corners are like nice and sharp. And you can use a pair of scissors, but be very careful if you're using scissors. And press these seams first of all. You're going to press these seams for both sides, of course, and then do a double top stitch. And once you're done with that, you're going to fold this way so that this is showing, and this is the optional part. And you're also going to top stitch again up here. So this is what we have so far, and you're going to have the same thing basically going on both sides. Now To close this pocket piece, what we're gonna do is flip this way, and with wrong sides facing, we're gonna put these together like this way, so the wrong sides are facing. And you're gonna sew at a 1/4 inch seam allowance going down here. This is what you're gonna have. Next, you're gonna cut along here just a little bit, and you're gonna pull this out so that right sides are facing. Then you're gonna sew at a 1/2 inch seam allowance to close this off, which means you're gonna basically be hiding this raw edge under that 1/2 inch. Once you're done, this is what it's gonna look like, and you're basically gonna repeat the same steps on the other side. But one last step that you want to do is put this down so that all of these edges are aligned. Everything kind of becomes aligned. This edge has to align with this. And you are going to baste stitch at a 1/4 inch seam allowance along this edge and along the top as well. Do this on both sides. So now your 2 front pieces are ready, or almost ready, and we're just gonna put them aside for now and bring in our back pieces. So this is before we add the yokes, and what we're gonna do is treat these notches the same way. These are gonna be where our pleats are gonna be, so fold it in half, or fold it so that the notches align. Kind of try and make sure that the bottom is straight, so these should align as well. And this is just gonna, actually it doesn't have to, right? You're just gonna align these notches at the top and take your ruler, mark a straight line down, mark at 4 inches, sew, back stitch, do the same on the other side, and I'll get back to you. And once you're done with that, this is what it's gonna look like. This stitch, you don't have to do a zigzag because you're gonna end up hiding it with your back pocket, but you know, basically the same thing you did with the fronts. And now you can start placing your back pockets, and you're gonna notice that the bottom is gonna be kind of like between the pleat, so you're just gonna pin it down and make sure it's like almost centered. You're gonna measure 2 inches from the side, 2.5 inches from the top, and then kind of mark it there, pin, and sew it down with double top stitches. Okay, so great. We have our back pockets attached, and now we can go on to adding the yokes. And to do the yokes, we're gonna place them like this. So the longer side of the yoke is gonna be towards this seam over here, as you can see. And now what we're gonna do is find the center, which we can do by just folding this in half and notching, boom. And also find the center here by folding in half, and I think it might be right where that pleat is. So the center is this seam over here, as you can see. And what we're gonna do is align this to this. The right side's facing, pin, and start pinning from here outwards. This is what you're gonna have, and now you're gonna sew all along here at 1 inch seam allowance. We're gonna be doing a flat felled seam, so let's do that, and then I'll show you what you do next. You're gonna do the same for both sides. So now we have this, and you can notice how big my seam is. This is 1 inch seam allowance. And if you're not sure, you can just mark out 1 inch towards here, and then kind of find the marking on your machine that's supposed to be 1 inch, and then just kind of sew using that as a guide. All right, next step, I'm gonna just do 2 steps in one. The first step is I'm going to pull these apart and press this seam. And then usually what we would do is cut this top seam shorter. We would cut this top seam shorter and then use this seam as the one that's gonna kind of cover this. But for this one, since we have this pleat and this is a lot of layers, this would be a lot of layers. What we're gonna do is after pressing, we're gonna cut this seam down. So we're gonna cut it to like 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then I'll show you what you do next. So once you're done cutting down this bottom seam, what you're gonna do next is fold this up this way, press. Make sure it's nice and flat. And then you're gonna fold this in half to cover that seam and just press. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you get your flat felled seams. Now you're just gonna top stitch from this side along the bottom instead of the top, because that is where your seam is facing. As you can see the faces, this seam is down here, so you're gonna double top stitch down here. And remember, when you're doing a top stitch, the first stitch you're gonna do is add 1/8 of an inch seam allowance to this one, so it's gonna be very close to this first seam, and then the second stitch is gonna be slightly less than 1/4 inch away from that first stitch. Now that you're done top stitching, this is what you're gonna have. And sometimes, actually most of the time, especially if you're using a domestic machine, wherever you have like very bulky seams and you have to top stitch, it might be hard for your machine to kind of get on. Sometimes maybe your machine might even break. Not your machine, sorry, your needle. I'd advise getting one of these and using it just to flatten out your seams so that it's easier to sew and top stitch. And of course, having a jean needle, that's important, especially if you're using a domestic sewing machine. Okay, done. So you might get a situation like this. It's nothing crazy, just kind of cut it towards this point. So you're not gonna make this any shorter, you're just gonna cut and then done. So for now, what we're gonna do is overlock this side, the side seam, overlock this side seam as well, and also overlock here and here as well. So as you can see with the back pieces, I overlocked along the side seam and this inside seam. I didn't overlock these parts because I'm going to do another flat felt seam. And for the fronts, I also overlocked the sides, the side edges, and this part. You only have to really overlock this part because this is going to be hidden by your fly facing and then the side seam as well. I know you guys probably can't wait to do the front fly, but let's save that, let's put these away for now and then make this flat felt seam. So similarly to the one on the yoke, you're gonna put your pieces right sides facing, pin and sew along here at 1 inch seam allowance. So now that you have this seam and you ironed it out nicely, what you want to do is, there's two ways for you to make this bulky seam less bulky. The one I advise most is just using a hammer, a mallet. I don't know what this is called. I was calling this a hammer. My friend was like, that is not a hammer. But you're gonna basically use this to kind of flatten the seam out. But another thing that you can do is kind of cut this seam, but make sure that you cut before this fold so that this raw edge doesn't show. That's another thing. I'm just gonna do it just before you get to that fold, which won't be much honestly, but it might help. And do the top stitches like how you did these ones. So I have two last tips. Before you start with your stitches, you just have to make sure that this is still folded, and you're gonna start over here, obviously. 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Set your stitch length at 4, and then you're gonna start sewing. And then once you get to this bulky part, once you get to this bulky part, you're gonna want to use a sewing pig to kind of help you get on top of this. I'll show you just now. And then now you have, a decent seam. The thing is, this is a domestic machine, so it's hard to get like nice, evenly spaced stitches and stuff like that. But hey, it worked, right? Now let's do the second stitch. Okay, another successful flat felt seam. Okay, now let's take care of the front. First thing we're gonna want to do is fold this fly shield in half so that the right sides are facing, and then sew at a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, or even a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance along here. Then I'm gonna snip into this curve just a little bit, pull it so that right sides are out. Now you're just gonna overlock this edge. Okay, so here comes the fun part. We're gonna start working on the fly. Step 1, place this piece right sides facing to match this, and then you're gonna sew at 1/2 an inch seam allowance like this until here. Back stitch when you get here. Now you're gonna do two things. One is you're gonna cut until right before where the stitch ends. Under here, you're just gonna cut, boom. So you don't want to cut past where the stitch is, and then you're gonna notch towards this corner, and you're gonna take some fabric off from this corner. And the last thing you're gonna do is just trim the seam allowance along here. And now you're just gonna pull this so that you have your wrong sides facing. And you're gonna press this seam, and you're gonna top stitch starting from right above where you made that cut. Top stitch at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So once you're done with that, you're just gonna flip this over and bring in your zip. And what you want to do is make sure that this zip is facing down, and you're gonna align it to this corner here, like so that this edge is gonna be aligned to this, and it's gonna kind of just continue on. And what you want to do now is just pin the zip to this facing part, not to this as well, just this part, and just gonna pin it on this side. You're sewing this side, pin in place here and here. And now you're gonna sew this way up until the top. So this is what it will look like now, and you're just gonna turn it over again, and as you can see, you stitched this way, and now you're just gonna pull this side up and pin. The idea is that you're gonna turn this over and sew like this, right? But we don't want to sew we don't want to sew this pin. That's why you kind of want to keep it here and not like have this come through here or something. Just a small tip, nothing crazy. And so now you're just gonna use your chalk and your ruler to mark out how that stitch is gonna go, and it's basically gonna stop right above here. It's gonna go up like this, and then like this, and then like this. You can make it curve, you can make it just straight, whatever it is that you like, you could do that. After doing these two top stitches, I just added some detail here. You don't need to do this, but next you're gonna turn this over and move this pin, and you're gonna place this piece on top of here, kind of aligning it to the edge of the zip, because next you're gonna just put them together like this. You're gonna pin them together, and you're gonna sew this way on this side, and you're gonna use a zipper foot so that you can kind of stitch a little bit closer to the teeth of the zip. So I also added a stitch over here just to kind of keep this piece connected to this one, like so. And now what you're gonna do is pull out your other front piece. This is your, I don't even know if I should say right or left. You know what I mean. You know exactly what I mean. And you're just gonna kind of align these, and you're gonna transfer this marking over here. You're gonna transfer it to this side. So I'm just gonna use some chalk, and I'm just gonna make sure that these are aligned, especially here, right? So I'm aligning these, and I'm gonna get to here where this cut is. Just gonna transfer it to the other side, and you are going to cut half of an inch inwards towards there. And after cutting this, you're gonna fold this in half of an inch all the way to the top and press. So now, once you've finished ironing this down, you're just gonna fold this over and pretty much hide this edge of the zip using this fold, like you see me do here, aligning these two parts, these two slits, and you're just gonna pin and sew down here using again your zipper foot. So now these are what your jeans should look like. Your front fly is pretty much done, and what you have left to do is just align these two edges or corners, I don't know what to call them. Just align them like so, and you're basically just gonna sew up here at 1/4 of an inch and go this way, and then go down. I mean, add 1/8 of an inch to this fold, and then this way, and then down at 1/4 of an inch, just basically a double stitch. And what you want to be sure that you're doing is this edge of your fabric should be aligned to this edge, and this corner should be aligned to this one. So this is pretty much what it's going to look like, and you can pin. And what I like to do is start down here, go up, stop, pivot, go this way, actually pivot here, and then down this way. And there you have it. The front of your jeans are completed. And if you find yourself in a situation where these seams didn't really align well, you can just redo it or just secure this stitch. But now that we're done with this, you're gonna take your back and place these right sides facing, and you're gonna begin by sewing this inner seam. And so you're just gonna align these two seams like so, pin, then you're gonna sew all the way down like this until here at 1/2 of an inch seam allowance. Then once this is done, you're gonna press this seam towards the front. So you just put it like this, and then press towards the front and iron all the way so that the seam is facing towards the front of your jeans. And then after that, you're gonna top stitch, you're gonna double top stitch the seam on the side where the seam is, obviously, so along the front, and you're just gonna do a double top stitch. All right, boom. So once you're done with this seam, you're done double top stitching. You can align the side seams to each other. You're gonna have the side seams kind of right next to each other from this side and this side. You're gonna pin, and you're gonna sew the side seams at 1/2 of an inch seam allowance. So after sewing these side seams together, you're gonna turn your jeans right sides out, and I pressed this seam that way, so towards the back. And what we're gonna do now is just do a top stitch along the side, but not all the way down. We're just gonna measure like maybe 1.5 inches below where this pocket stops. And we're gonna do a top stitch, a double top stitch coming here, boom, and then going up. All right, there we go. So, all right, and there we go. So sometimes you'll notice that the stitch length, like I set mine to 4, but sometimes when I'm sewing, the machine doesn't want to like push the fabric itself, so like the stitch length would like vary, and sometimes it's short. So sometimes it's good to just kind of help your machine by pulling the fabric a little bit, so that you can kind of keep a more consistent stitch length. Because I don't like this, but it's not too crazy, you know. Sometimes it's good, you know, and then sometimes it just does weird things. So now what we're gonna do is just kind of go and focus on 2 things, one being hemming. And you might sew over here and then have a situation where this is happening. You just gotta level it out. So what I'm gonna do is take a pair of scissors and just kind of, you know, what we're gonna do next is press in at 1/2 inch and then press in again at 1/2 inch. Then you're just gonna use your iron to kind of have this situation, which is gonna allow you to just do a top stitch along the bottom. Then when you're done with that, you're just gonna put this aside. I'm gonna do all these steps in one, but you'll be ready to move on to making your waist. And this is the lining piece, the piece that's gonna be inside. You're just gonna put this aside. And with this piece that's gonna be on the outside, you'll see it's kind of doing this curve, right? So you're just gonna flip it over. You're gonna fold in at 1/2 inch seam allowance all along this bottom, you know, all along this edge, and then press, just press. After you press, what you're gonna do is hold these right sides facing and then sew, obviously align these notches. And then you're gonna sew along the top edge at 1/2 inch seam allowance. So all the way from here to here at 1/2 inch seam allowance. After that, you're just gonna pull them right sides facing and press. So I have 2 tips after doing this step. One, if your denim is even a little bit stretchy, I think you can either do 2 things, like apply interfacing to it as well so that it doesn't stretch and everything kind of falls into place nicely, or 2, do a basting stitch, like a 1/4 inch basting stitch at like with your stitch length set to 4, and then you're gonna stitch this, because right now I kind of got more length from this, you know, even though I cut them the same size. But we're just gonna cut this off. If you made the same mistake as me, this is what you're gonna do, unfortunately. But now you can kind of shorten this seam allowance by just cutting this all the way, and then after you're done doing this, you are going to flip this over so that the wrong sides are facing, and then press it. Then I'll show you what you do after that. So now your waistband looks like this. We have the side that's going to be inside, and this is the side that's going to be out. It's almost ready to attach to your jeans, but before we do that, you're just going to put this aside, and you're going to pull out your belt loops. And what you're going to do next is just cut out your belt loops. So the length of each belt loop is going to be 3.5 inches. and you're just gonna measure and cut. Just keep cutting. So in total, we want 5 belt loops. You're gonna have a little bit of extra. You just put that away. You don't need it, or you could use it as an extra loop for like something to hook onto your pants. But we have 5 belt loops and we're good. Now let me show you how you're gonna attach your belt loops. So firstly, I'm just gonna put these away, very close by, and I'm gonna pull out these jeans. And the way I'm gonna place these is I'm gonna put a belt loop over here right next to this pleat, and it's gonna be this side. What I usually do is kind of measure 1.5 inch down and then make a mark so that I can sew like this and then do this and then top stitch. Basically do the same thing for all of the belt loops. I'm gonna place 2 here, and then I'm gonna show you what how I'm gonna place the ones at the back. But on this project, I want to do something a little different, something a little risky. I might regret it, but I've seen jeans where they actually hide the bottom of this belt loop under here. So instead of like moving it down, I'm just gonna pin it here so that I'm just gonna baste stitch and then sew, and then they're gonna be under the waistband. Once you're done adding all your belt loops, you're gonna have something that looks like this. And now what you want to do is, since I'm using a domestic machine, what I went ahead and did was use a mallet to kind of flatten these seams out, because there's a lot of layers right here. Given that we have a pleat here, but otherwise you'll be okay. Then what you want to do is shorten this zip. So when you get here, you're gonna need 1/2 inch around here for you to be able to stitch this waistband on. And I don't know how well this is going to work, but what I'm gonna do is just cut up until past these teeth and then remove these teeth. The next step would be, and also do the mallet thing to this part also, because this is a lot of layers as well. And if you have a 15 centimeter zip, you're not gonna have this problem, because this part of the zip is gonna be here. You get me? So which means you're gonna have that 1/2 inch seam allowance. You're gonna have this space over here anyway if you got the right size zip. I think what I'm gonna do is do a base stitch all around the waist at 1/4 inch seam allowance, just to get rid of this stretch, because you can see it kind of stretches, and we don't want that when we're sewing this to this, because now we're gonna have pieces that are slightly longer than each other. We're gonna have bunching up, and it's not gonna be sweet. Okay, so I just finished doing the base stitch, and you'll notice that it doesn't stretch out as much, which is a good thing. But now we're gonna add the waistband, put it in this way. So this side is gonna be aligned to the inside. We're gonna just align this notch to the seam. Is it here, Vel? No, so the seam, as you can see, you'll notice here's where the seam is. It's this side. So we're gonna align these, and then you're just gonna sew from here all the way around to here, and then from here all the way around to this side. Cool. Now here comes a fairly important part. 2 things you want to do. You might want to take off this seam allowance over here, just to kind of reduce the bulk of your sewing. You're not going to cut all the way though. You're just going to stop somewhere here. Stop somewhere here so that these two are still kind of attached to each other. And then what you're gonna do next is place these two pieces right sides facing. So how is that gonna look? It's just literally this. This side is gonna be folded inward like this, and you also want this side to be folded inward like this. So now you have two pieces that are folded upwards. And once you're here, you're gonna sew these together right where this stops. So slightly just after this, you're gonna sew up until here. Make sure you backstitch, and then you're gonna do the exact same thing this side. So place these right sides facing. Now they're the same size, you see, and you're gonna sew from here all the way up, and then cut the seam allowance. So again, when you get to your machine, this is what your waist piece is gonna look like. You're gonna fold these so that the right sides are facing, and then this is what it's gonna look like this side. This is what it's gonna look like this side. You're just gonna sew, kind of align these so that everything is nice and flat. Right next to where this is. So this doesn't look quite straight. I'm just gonna go ahead and sew it from this side, going up, and do the same thing on the other side. Then I'm gonna cut all of this seam allowance, most of it anyway. Just give myself a little bit of space, and there we have it. So basically the idea is that you're gonna fold this, and it's gonna hide this nicely, you see. What I also like to do though, before I turn this, is just cut this corner a little bit, and this corner as well, like so. Being careful not to cut past this stitch, as you can see. And again, you're gonna do the same thing on the other side. Cool, man, we're getting there. And so yeah, here's what it looks like now. And now you're just basically gonna hold this and then flip it so that the wrong sides are facing, and you can use like a pair of scissors or something to just give this corner some pointiness. And essentially we're gonna use this to kind of hide this stitch. You see, we have this stitch, we're hiding it, and I'm just gonna pin all the way around, and then top stitch, add an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and you'll notice that it kind of sits naturally, nicely. Then you're gonna sew 1/4 of an inch, turn, sew all around. To make it easier on yourself, you kind of want to have your jeans looking like this on your machine, where the body of your jeans, the lower side, is this side of your foot, because having to feed all of that in here may become a problem. And you don't want to start sewing here, because usually when you come back around, the stitches are not gonna align and it's gonna show. So what you want to do is start here where your belt loop is, because you know it's gonna hide this, right? So you can just come over here, start sewing from here all the way around. You'll notice as I'm trying to make this top stitch, the fabric is kind of bunching up and creating these ripples that we do not want. And that is the exact reason why you should apply interfacing to both of your waist pieces. So that's what I'm going to be doing, and I'm going to try again. I just went ahead and cut out another violin piece, but I cut it in half. And then I just applied it to this edge and repressed this. And now I'm just going to try again, and hopefully it won't bunch up. I just finished doing that top stitch, and I have to say, like, the interfacing really helps. Like, definitely add interfacing. You see, it's so much cleaner, looks so much more professional, it feels so much more professional. But the only mistake I'd say is that here you see I'm catching this, and over here I'm not quite catching it. But which is why kind of starting from inside just helps, so that even if you miss it, like, it's from the outside, it still looks good. You know what I mean? They won't know, but you know you got some wabi sabi on your project. But okay, what I also want to do is just take off, since this zip I shortened it. I feel like I may have made it a little too short. I should have left some teeth past here, but I was just too scared to, like, break my needle. But if you're in the same predicament as me, we're gonna go ahead and use good old thread and needle. And what I did this side is just kind of just loop it up a bunch of times to make it nice and bulky, and then cut it, and then I'm gonna repeat the same thing this side. And hopefully that works. You're gonna loop it enough times that you know that your zipper head won't pass. Obviously make a few knots before you cut. Then I went ahead and finished these belt loops. You'll notice I'm just like folding it along the top at 1/4 inch seam allowance, top stitching with a zigzag stitch, and then top stitching along the bottom with a zigzag stitch as well. Then proceeded to do a top stitch to hem the shorts. Cool, so once you're done top stitching these, I use the zigzag stitch with a pretty low length. And I just did these top stitches all around. And what I also did was top stitch down here, and this is how it looks inside. And it was just a little below 1/2 inch, because you remember we folded 1/2 inch. And then I'm just kind of making sure that I'm sewing on top of this as I'm sewing on top. But anyway, there we go. Now we're gonna do the button over here, and you're just gonna start by, first thing you're gonna start with is the buttonhole, and that's gonna help you kind of decide where the button is. So if your buttonhole kind of starts here, you're just gonna draw where it'll start, and I want it to be 1 inch wide. So I'm gonna take out my ruler, and I'm gonna make this shape that's kind of like this. It's hard because this chalk isn't sharp, but you're gonna zigzag like this, this, and this. So it's gonna make this like teardrop shape. And then once you're done, you're just gonna use your seam ripper to cut out that hole. And then where this point is, you're just gonna transfer it to this side, right? And then add the button, but let's do it step by step. And there we have it. I may have made this a little too wide. I think my chalk was just not sharp, so I couldn't really follow. I just had to kind of do my own thing. But the slit is thin enough that the button won't like go out, but aesthetically could have been smaller. But then at the same time, maybe it looks good. I don't know. I'm transferring a mark over here. I think I want it to be a little bit higher, but yeah, man, we're at the last step. You're gonna take out your button and the little backing piece. And first off, you're just gonna make a very small hole, very small, just a tiny hole where you want your button to be. So just tiny. And then come with this thing and put it through the back. And here we go. Now you're just gonna put the button on, and you're gonna use your hammer to put it on. You're just gonna flip this way, like so. And use your hammer just to I think you got it. You got it. We're done. I'm gonna test it. And there we go. There we are. You can add rivets and stuff if you have the hardware, or even also add a patch behind here, you know. But there we go. Last thing we're gonna do is just clean this up.
I've been all mine. I've been all mine. Kanye shit. Kanye shit.
If you've made it all the way to the end, I want to say thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe and check out some of these other videos. And until next time, happy sewing. Peace.
Like I've been on the late shift, don't like to delay shit. Speak now if you're gonna say shit, yeah. Speak loud, I'm in outer space, bitch, face it. You been in the basement, I can walk outside.